Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours. I am Jeff Blankenburg, and today I have Alicia Everson here with me again. Thank you for being here, Alicia.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
For everybody in the audience, I made the huge mistake of we have this nice spreadsheet where we keep track of where the session's going to happen and how she can join in, and I totally forgot to update it. And she thankfully was on top of her game and reminded me that I had forgotten that. So I'm glad you could be here. I'm glad that you reminded me because once we get this thing started, it's hard for me to regroup and update those things. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that everybody here in the audience is welcome. So thank you guys all for being here. As we do every week, I'm here with Alicia to answer any of your questions about Alexa development, certification, like whatever you can think about related to Alexa and building and software development, all that stuff. So if you have questions for us, please drop them in the chat. We can see all that stuff here. I see that we've got Cedric here on LinkedIn and Sparsh on Facebook. We've also got Miguel and Fabio and Samuel here on LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much for being here. And if you have any questions for us, we would be more than happy to answer those questions. In the meantime, Alicia, how's the heat?
Oh man, it's a struggle. Not gonna lie. Yesterday,
yeah, and for people that are international, it's about, well, yesterday was what, 110?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I was there last week for some team meetings, and when I come to Seattle, I pack jeans and layers so that I can have like this, right? I would have a t-shirt with something with long sleeves on it, because when you get up in the morning, it's 50 something, and by the middle of the day, maybe it's high 70s, low 80s. But that's on a really beautiful summer day. And so I was there last week, and I brought those clothes, and every night when I got back to my hotel room, all of my clothes were just wet from sweating and like walking. It was terrible. I did not plan well for that weather.
Yeah.
So do you have air conditioning at your place?
I do not. No.
Oh.
And I've waited too long at this point, and they're all out of stock. So.
Well, I think it's supposed to start cooling down again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the end of this week. Today is actually cooler than yesterday. So.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
At least some box fans or something rolling.
Yep. Yeah, I was in Spokane over the weekend, and it was a much drier heat. Spokane is like in eastern Washington, and now I'm back in western Washington, and it's much more humid here, which makes a big difference.
Yeah. Someone mentioned that there is a big football match in Europe. I think it's Italy, Austria. Is that the game today?
Maybe.
I know there's a bunch of big soccer football matches in Europe this week. I don't know which game it is, but I know there are a lot of very big games this week. So someone's saying that we may not get the audience we're hoping for today because people are going to be watching some soccer, football. Okay. So Fabio says he doesn't have any questions today, but he'd love to share some ideas. Fabio, we're open to that too. If you have features or ideas that you'd like to see, I mean, obviously we don't make any promises here, but I would be happy to collect those and include those as part of our feedback to the product team, which is a core part of what I do here. So, it's England, Germany. Man, that's a serious match.
Oh, yeah.
There was Fabio also said, this is a different Fabio on YouTube versus the Fabio that's on LinkedIn. Said, please talk about dialogue delegation strategy. That's interesting. I would love to know more about what you mean by that question, but I can tell you at its core, when I think about dialogue delegation, and for those of you that aren't familiar with this concept, there is the capability in your interaction model to define dialogue management, basically, dialogue delegation. And this is where you allow the Alexa engine to handle some of your conversational interactions. This was the foundation for technologies like Alexa Conversations, which are far more advanced beyond the basics of dialogue delegation. But the core idea is, for example, you have a question that is, you ask a user, hey, what movie do you want to watch? And they say, I want to watch Star Wars, right? So Star Wars is a slot value, and you set up the slot inside your utterances to say, hey, this is a value that I'm expecting. With dialogue delegation, what you can do is define specific things. Actually, this might be easier if I just show it, but you can define specific things to say, hey, I want to make sure that they actually give me a value. And if they don't, don't go back to my code. Don't make me do a bunch of extra work. What I want you to do is just reprompt them and say, no, I'm looking for the name of a movie. So let me share my screen here. We'll get into this a little bit. There's my infinite screens of wisdom, and we're going to share that like so, and then we're going to go to the developer console. Okay, so inside the developer console, I'm going to look at my interaction model. This is just a made-up skill. There's nothing fancy to it yet, but I have this hello world intent, and so you can see dialogue delegation strategy. I think this is what Fabio was referring to, and it's disabled right now, but let me show you how this works. So instead of just hi, let's say we want to say someone's name. So you have to say someone's name in order to do this. So we'll create a name slot. And then down here, I can say, oh, this is going to be Amazon.firstname. And then we're going to edit this thing. This is where I get to come in and start managing my dialogue delegation. And so in this choice, I can say, is this slot required to fulfill the intent? So what it's going to do is say, if I don't get a value, if they just say hi, it's going to use this information to push back and say, hey, no, I need you to tell me the answer that I'm looking for. Maybe it's a movie or a city or whatever it might be looking for. And so then what do they say? It might say, I need you to say, say a name for me, please. Which name do you want to use? So we'll add that. You can add multiples, so this allows you to have some randomization. It'll pick one randomly each time. So Alexa speech prompts, this is what I'm going to say. I need you to say a name for me, please. And then we want to give it some representation about what the user might say. And we're going to say, oh, they're going to use the name slot. Again, I get to use all of my name values here still. And I'll show you a more advanced example of this in a second. And then another thing you can do with this dialogue management is, does it require confirmation? So if you're not familiar with confirmation, the idea here is, I say, I want a pepperoni pizza. And this happens very commonly, especially in food ordering. They'll come back to you and say, okay, 1 pepperoni pizza, right? They want to say back to you what they heard, because that's a confirmation opportunity to make sure that we actually got it right. And so when you say slot confirmation, you can also have a prompt for this. I heard you say, and this is where I can actually just fill in whatever the value is that the user used. So I'll say that. And it'll say, I heard you say name. So the way this all works now is the user says hi, and it goes, oh, I didn't get a name. So it says, okay, I need you to say a name for me, please. What name do you want to use? And then they say a name. And then once I get a name, regardless of what the order of this all is, then it will say, oh, I heard you say name, right? So that's going to be the process that we go through for this dialogue delegation. So I'm going to save this model. That'll take just a minute, and we'll build it. And then I'll go to the testing console, and I'll show you how this actually looks. So while we're waiting for that to happen, I just want to remind you what this hello world intent looks like. So I have this hi name, and I have this slot value here. So our quick build is already done. That's great. We'll wait for the full build, and I'll go over to the testing tab just to show you guys how this works. But this is a very convenient way for a lot of those simple tasks, like, did I hear you right? Is this the thing you wanted? Or making sure that a user actually filled in the slot value that you were expecting. It's a way to do it without writing a whole bunch of code behind the scenes to handle that. So I don't even know what the invocation name is for this. So let's take a look at that first. Change me. It's probably not going to like that, but we'll try it anyway. So I say, because I probably have several of these, open change me. What's that going to do?
Hello, I am Cakewalk. What is your birthday?
So let's change this to Jeff's dialogue. We'll have to build again, unfortunately. But we'll fix that really quick. And while we're doing this, let me jump in and make sure I'm not missing anything massive from the question. Can I publish a skill to a limited audience? Before I get into that, too much going on at once. So let me come back. I'm distracting myself. We got through the base build, I think. Let's see what happens if I say open. Well, actually, let's do this. Wait. Say open Jeff's dialogue. Keyboard shorting out or something. Power every second. Jeff's dialogue.
Messaging with Alexa is not supported on this device.
Okay.
You can use the Alexa app instead.
Let's try this instead. We'll go to the testing, the evaluation. I think this will still give me what I want. So I can say, hi, Jeff. Yeah, so this at least illustrates what we're trying to see here. So it said, I heard you say Jeff. This is the response that we were expecting, right? And it's taking that confirm slot response. But if we say something like hi, I would not expect that. Hello. I need you to say a name for me, please. What name do you want to use? So you can see here that I'm getting those responses automatically. I didn't have to write any code in my project. In fact, I haven't even touched any code yet. But you can see, I need you to say a name for me, please. Are you guys still able to see my screen, or did I stop sharing? I totally stopped sharing. Let me do that again. All right, so here in the evaluate model utterance profiler, I typed in hello, and it said, I need you to say a name for me, please. Which name do you want to use? And then I can just say like Alicia, for most of it. And I heard you say Alicia. That is the response that we expect when we confirm that. And it also allows for a yes, no prompt, all of that kind of stuff. So that's, when we talk about dialogue delegation strategy, it's using these tools in a way to handle a lot of these kinds of common scenarios. And if I go back to my intent, you will see that now we have options here. Enable auto delegation, disable it, or fall back to whatever the skill setting is for when people bounce out of these things. But that is the whole story. Hopefully that helps all of you. So we'll turn that off and stop sharing. Okay, so now we can get into some other questions. Oswald wants to know, in account linking, what is the requirement of the access token from my server? Will a normal JWT token work with Alexa? Alicia, do you know the answer to that one?
I don't actually.
Okay, so I think if we look at Alexa account linking, I think there's a great bit of technical documentation on this. I could type operate. So I am by no means claiming to be an account linking expert. So, but I do lean in on the documentation quite frequently. So I'm going to give you this page, the comments. So I'm sharing what is basically the account linking detail page in our technical documentation. But I might start there as a place to look for some answers. But as far as will a normal JWT token work with Alexa, I think so. But I don't actually know the answer to that. My understanding is that account linking uses standard OAuth 2 protocols, but I don't know enough about tokens and OAuth myself to be able to answer whether a JWT token will work. So hopefully that gets you in the right direction, Aswet. Jolwork says, this is on Twitch, can I publish a skill to a limited audience, say my kids or a group in an office? I know I can use beta test, but I have to renew that. Yes, I totally agree. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The first step, which has a little bit of overhead, but it's doable, is a service called Alexa for Business. This is, in its broadest definition, a way to have an enterprise deploy skills within the enterprise or within a specific set of devices. So Alexa for Business, I think, is probably what you're looking for. Your other option would be to grant those specific individuals, if you're just talking about a couple of people, grant a couple of those individuals access to your developer account. I think I've shown that before on here, but when you log into developer.amazon.com, there's a place where you can set user settings and allow other accounts to have access to your skills. And then without publishing them or going through beta or anything, they would also be able to use your skills that way. It's a little dicier. And I only say that because if you're going to go this route, you need to fully trust all of the people that you're going to grant access. because they would have the ability, if they wanted to, if they were knowledgeable enough to know where to find it, to be able to go in and delete, change, modify, edit any of your skills. So that's obvious. There's a little risk there, but if it's a handful of people that you trust, it's probably just fine. But for something like a group in an office, you're looking for Alexa for Business. That is the thing that you want. All right, let's see what Cedric says here on LinkedIn. Alexa needs a better built-in tool to manage complex scenarios. For example, I can't turn off my Alexa spot screen and send another Alexa custom command. Alexa should use system commands on a PC or a Mac to turn it off with a voice command like a lamp. Well, I believe I have this here or not. My computer's not cooperating. One moment. I think if you talked, I have to sign in. Give me 1 second. If you're on a PC anyway, you can open Cortana. I'm waiting for it to stop giving me recommendations. And I want to say talk to Alexa. Is that not working anymore? Do you happen to know that one, Alicia? I know that worked for a while.
I don't know.
I wonder if this is a newer computer for me too, so I wonder if I need to install something. I'm a little disappointed. I thought this was just going to work, and it's not. That looks like a no. Okay, I'm going to get this Alexa app that's available in the Microsoft Store, but that's not answering the question for now. So let me install that. Maybe we can come back to that later, or maybe it's just a separate app now. I'm not sure exactly. Jeff, where did it go? Lost your message. It scrolled on me. Miguel on LinkedIn says, any idea when we can have call another Alexa task available for Alexa skills, like starting another call or calling a support team from inside a skill? This is a very highly requested feature. And Miguel, I'm going to make sure that I copy this into my list for today, but I don't have an answer for you. One of the things that you'll find here is that we can't really share anything about roadmap, what's coming in the future or when, but I love this, and I've seen this multiple times before, so I'm going to make sure that this ends up on my list yet again, because I know that as Alexa Live is happening here soon, one of the things that our product team is going to be focused on over the next 6 to 8 weeks is really planning out the roadmap for the following year. And so this is our opportunity to really kind of funnel a lot of these things in front of them and try to get them prioritized. But again, I'm just one person. I like to think I have some influence here sometimes, but it's not always the case. I can't just demand everything and get it to happen, but I will. I'll make sure this is on my list for sure. How do I play the YouTube? How do I play YouTube on an Echo Spot? I know for a while, Alicia, this was hit or miss, where YouTube was supporting Alexa and then they weren't. I don't actually know the answer to that, but let's just try it. I'm not going to try it on my Spot, though I do have a Spot here also. Alexa, open YouTube.
YouTube doesn't support that.
Are you sure? Alexa, open YouTube.
YouTube doesn't support that.
Okay, so like I said, it has teetered back and forth. There's obviously a friendly bit of co-opetition going on between Google and Amazon, and so I don't know whose side that is on, but it seems like right now YouTube is not something that is currently available. I'll try it on my Spot just to see if I get any difference, but I would doubt it. Alexa.
Sorry, I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Cool.
It looks like an issue. So try restarting them. Unplug both of them, then plug the router back in. Wait 30 seconds. Once the router is back on and connected to the
Alexa.
internet, sorry, I'm having
She's
trouble
not going to listen to me.
connecting
Okay, I just have to let her go, I guess.
Looks like an issue.
So I don't have a good answer for you on YouTube, but I wish that I did. You haven't seen any examples of YouTube on Alexa, have you, Alicia?
I haven't, but I was just browsing the web, and it looks like it's not available currently.
Okay. I know there have been times where it is available. For example, it's definitely available on the Fire TV, but apparently it is not available on Echo devices right now, which is too bad. Cedric on LinkedIn wants to know, can you share contacts or links about localized Alexa experts in France? Well, the first place I would go for that is the Alexa Champions. I believe we do have 1 or 2 champions in France. Let me check this just to make sure. We have Dustin Coates in Paris, Sabrina, and Hisham Tahiri. So yeah, we have 3. Here's what I'm going to recommend, because I think they even provide their social stuff on here. I'll let you pick who you want to talk to. Yeah, they have. You should be able to track these people down, but I'll let you make your decision for yourself. But if you guys aren't aware of our Alexa Champions, here's a link to their page. These are people that we as Amazon have recognized for having strong expertise in voice and certainly in Alexa development. Although they do vary wildly as to what their expertise is and their knowledge base. But I would recommend checking that out. There's 3 people that are based in France specifically. And so I would reach out to them. Okay, W. Giorgio. This looks like it's going to be a feature request, but let's copy it and just see what we get. He says, I would like to send notifications to a user, but instead it's being sent by some event trigger like pizza is ready or pizza is on the way. I want to have a separate Lambda that is time event driven. Once per day, the notification goes out. I know how to do timed events on Lambda, but not sure if it's possible to grab the information needed to send a notification outside of the skill. So W. Giorgio, I think what you're looking for is skill resumption. Because you're right, you don't have the ability to just send notifications are driven by event triggers. But skill resumption, I don't believe is. And what skill resumption would allow you to do is say, let's use the pizza example. I've ordered my pizza. Please let me know when it's on the way. Or an Uber is another good example of skill resumption, right? I need a ride. Okay, your driver should be ready in about 10 minutes. I will get back to you when they're near your house. Right? Those still feel like event triggers to me, but they're driven by your server. And there is a permissions gate that your user has to go through to allow you to do skill resumption. But it seems to me like skill resumption might solve some of those problems for you, because it basically allows you to, for lack of a better term, it allows you to hibernate your skill, wait for something to happen, and then you can actually not just notify, but bring your entire skill back into action. So it's not just a notification, but it's actually your skill speaking and saying, hey, your driver's on the way. Is there anything else I can help you with? And they're immediately back right into your skill. So take a look at resumption. Let me know if that helps. I'm sure as I continue down this comment chain, I will find more of your conversation. So let me make sure I copy this one down. And then we've got another one from Cedric here. Using an Alexa screen remotely, like any Android device, would be wonderful, like VNC. That's an interesting idea. I mean, I think under the covers it is running Android, so that would be interesting. Do you happen to know that? That's only an assumption of mine, but I think it's running Android under the covers. Do you know?
I don't.
Okay. Can you store a persistent attribute? Oh, this is Trade Last replying to W. Giorgio. Can you store a persistent attribute and then have a non-skill Lambda access it? After all, the attribute is just storage in S3 or Dynamo. Yeah. I mean, yes, that all of that is doable. I think you're trying to solve his notification issue. So now here's something interesting. Stephen would like to know if we could consider doing developer office hours as a podcast. That way I can listen to the audio when I'm not near a screen, and it could be archives for the podcast aggregators. Stephen, this is interesting. So currently, I am doing this with something else. I'm going to write this down as an idea, and I'll look into it. I mean, obviously, setting up a podcast is free. But we're doing this right now with the Alexa and Friends show. So if I go to Alexa great way. Alexa.design podcast. That's right. Alexa.design/podcast. Yeah. So we have a show on Thursdays called Alexa and Friends. And in that show, I'm taking the audio from that, which is usually a 50 to 60-minute interview with somebody working on the Alexa team somewhere. Alicia, I should do that with all of you guys, too. That might be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
To bring folks in for an interview. But that show is a live stream just like this, but then we also turned it into a podcast. And so it's about a month behind. So the episode that you see this Thursday won't show up on the podcast for about a month, just because we have a little bit of a backlog. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? So TradeLast says that JWT tokens should work for the Alexa account linking, so that's great. Cedric wants to know what tools for cross-voice platform can we use with Alexa, compatible with other assistants on the market. There are a few tools, but I don't think what you're asking for is like a build once, deploy anywhere kind of scenario. And we see that with things like Xamarin in the Microsoft world, and there's a number of other of these kinds of things. There are tools out there, but you're not really deploying everywhere with one thing. VoiceFlow comes to mind. I know there's another one called VoiceXP. But these tools allow you to build a thing, a representation, but then you're still pushing one to one place and one to another place. It's not just one version that lives everywhere. But I would recommend looking at either VoiceFlow or VoiceXP, depending on what you're looking for. Yeah, that would be where I would start. The challenge always with any of those is that when you don't build natively, and you see this a lot in the mobile world, there's lots of tools to allow you to build for iOS and Android, is that you find that you have to make this weird compromise between the two platforms. And there's things that you might want to do on iOS, but you can't because you're in this dual deployment model. And so what I generally recommend is think about how you can build a code base, because again, there's a front end and a back end to every skill. Think about how you can build a back end that can handle both. And then it's as simple as building an interaction model for each of them to handle your interactions. But then the code base itself is all unified. Okay, my page just scrolled again. Man, you guys have a ton of good questions today. This is great. Is there any Alexa API that returns user ID, or can it be passed from the skill to my server? This is mainly for sending user-specific notifications. So Aswat, as part of the JSON deployment package, the JSON that your skill receives when an interaction happens, there is an anonymized Alexa user ID in there every time. And whatever you can do whatever you want with that. I store mine to a database so that I have a recognizable identifier for my user. Again, it's anonymous, but at least it's the same every time. So as a user comes to my skill, I can be like, oh, they're XY7429, whatever. And it makes it very easy for me to be like, oh, that's the same person, so I can pick up their progress or remember what they've done before. So yeah, that's very, very doable. And that's just the user ID property that you'll find inside the JSON request. Hopefully that answers your question. I don't know this term. Brian Tarbox on Twitch is asking about Echo Buds. Alicia, you have earbuds in. Which kind do you have?
I have.
While you're doing that, I'm going to
I don't quite remember because my brother just got them for me the other day. They're the Galaxy Buds.
Oh, Galaxy Buds. All right.
Yeah.
I can't find mine, so never mind. I have the new Amazon Echo Buds 2, the V2 of those, and I use them on my flight to Seattle and back. They're fantastic, and obviously they have Alexa built into them as well. So in case people didn't know what those are, I was going to show them, but I can't find them. This is the wrong time for me to find my AirPods, but I did. So it says seems like ANC is disabled when on a Zoom call. Is that true? I don't know the answer to this question. I'd almost have to try it. And like I said, I don't have my headphones with me. In fact, now I'm a little nervous because I don't know where they are. But that's, I assume your ANC is automatic noise cancellation. That's my guess. I don't know why. Like, it seems like if I'm in a call, I would want noise cancellation. I would want it to be quieter, but I'm not aware of a specific. I haven't seen that before. Okay, Dana Voice, I'm going to move on to yours. Let's see if I can sit down and still look like a professional. There, that's not too bad. Okay. Dana Voice says, we're sorry, an error occurred while we were trying to process your request. Rest assured, we're already working on the problem and expect to resolve it shortly when trying to register a device to use with local debugging. Any thought on why this would happen? No, I don't. So let's see, you're doing local debugging. So you are using VS Code and you are trying to, you're just trying to register your computer with local debugging, or are we talking about registering a Alexa device with local debugging? I don't understand. Like, I'm not aware of a situation, Alicia, where you could register an Echo device for local debugging. Is that a thing you're aware of?
No.
Me either. So Dana, if you have more info for me, I'd love to understand better what you mean by this, but give me some more specifics. What kind of device are you registering? I'm assuming you're using local debugging, probably through VS Code, but give me some more answers and maybe we can figure this out. Oh, that's interesting. Gavin Watson said that when I asked my device to do YouTube, it opened YouTube on his Echo show in the UK.
Oh,
interesting.
That is interesting.
I know I've had it work before, so it's very odd that it doesn't work.
I think the information that
Dana says it's an AVS device.
Oh, okay.
They're creating their own AVS device to set up for local debugging. I am unfortunately not your guy. I wish that I was. Don't get me wrong. I've dabbled. I have my AVS Raspberry Pi sitting right here. I had to put a sticker on it to tell which one it was. That little USB thing sticking out of the end, that's a microphone. So I have dabbled in this, but not enough to be an expert on it, unfortunately. But here's some really awesome news, which we haven't done a ton of announcements about this yet, but we just hired a AVS evangelist. So we're going to have somebody that is the expert on all things AVS and devices, which is good because I can't possibly keep up with all of it. And they just started. So I'm not ready to out them if they're not ready to be outed yet. As soon as they're ready, I'll send you guys to them. And I think they're going to have their own office hours and all that kind of stuff. So it should be good. All right. Oh, I see. I'm just catching up to Dana's other message. I'm not ignoring chat. There's just lots and lots of stuff from lots of places. So I see your messages from Twitch now. They're all in the order that they were posted. Stephen Brown says you could kind of do cross-platform with VoiceFlow. Dana Voice also mentioned Jovo is another option for multi-platform deployment. Benjamin Anderson makes a good point. We were talking earlier about using the user ID from a user's JSON package when they interact with your skill. And Benjamin just mentions that don't forget, if the user uninstalls your skill and reinstalls it, that value will change. There's not a ton you can really do around that because that is the user ID. But if they choose to disable and then re-enable your skill, it will get a new user ID, unfortunately. The only time that doesn't happen, I think, is in very specific ISP use cases where they have, I think it's a subscription, or maybe a one-time purchase. I'm blanking on which, but subscription seems reasonable. But if they disable your skill and re-enable your skill, and they had a subscription, you'll get the same user ID. It does not replace it, because otherwise you'd have no idea who who they are or whether or not they should have access. Okay. Yeah, Dana, I would definitely recommend going to the Slack channel. That's a really, really good place to start for getting this kind of answer. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just don't have the debugging chops on setting up AVS devices these days. But every time I run into one of these, I'm reminded that I could be studying harder. Okay, so I think I've caught up. I think I've caught up to everything that's there. Someone mentioned that there is an agencies and tools page for each locale. Also, TradeLast mentioned that for the French experts for Cedric, if you're looking for an agency or something like that. And then Gavin Watson, on a separate channel, mentioned that he is looking for a way to get on the UK's agency and tools page, but didn't know the qualifiers to be listed on this page or who we could contact. So I don't know the right answer for you in the UK. There is a guy, and his name is escaping me. Matthew Cadman. His name is Matthew Cadman. And you can find him on LinkedIn and probably, I'm pretty sure, Twitter as well. Colleague of mine. He is responsible for all the agencies, and I think he even owns those pages. So my recommendation would be, if he's not in the Slack, which I think he is in the Slack, if he's not in the Slack, then I would recommend tracking him down on LinkedIn or something like that. I hate to dox somebody and give out like their email address and stuff like that, but you can very easily connect with him on LinkedIn and see if that helps you at all. Gautier wants to know if there are more countries getting support for ISP, if I can talk more about it. I love that you know I can't talk about it, but I will tell you that if you look at the broad picture, Amazon is interested in, one, making Alexa an amazing experience for their customers, and two, finding ways to make sure that it's at least a break-even, if not profitable venture. And the way to do that is through things like ISPs, and the more money we can make for developers, that means the more money that Amazon can make as well. So I will tell you that you should expect there are going to be more countries with ISP. But as far as a roadmap goes, which countries and when, I don't have any answers for you there. But I think it's reasonable to assume that you will see ISP in more places, yes.
Oh, going back to Gavin Watson's question as well.
Yeah.
Gavin, if you want to write into our contact us form, we can give you some questions that are related to qualifications for that page. And then from there, we can reach out to Matthew Cadman for you. And then he'll reach out to you from there if there is interest.
That's awesome, Alicia. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We have made it to the end of our list again. You guys can keep the questions flowing. We still have 22 minutes. I feel like we just started. And here we are 38 minutes in. All right. Okay, TradeLast. This is a good bit of feedback that I should add to my list. Good question. I would still like better feedback on why skills don't meet automatic locale distribution. I still get a generic read the FAQ as the reason. Even contacting support led to we're looking at it emails that span months, but without resolution. This feels like something that was specially designed for you, Alicia. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I know that our team has been in contact with the team that does the automatic locale distribution blurbs and things. So we're working with them on that currently. I don't have like a status currently, but
but it's something that you and your team are aware of, at least, which is good.
Yeah.
Do you know, is there any additional documentation that maybe he hasn't found that would give reasons or better data beyond the FAQ he's referring to?
Let me see if I can find anything and post it in the chat. Yeah, I'll see what I can find.
In the meantime, I'm Revital Schwartz on LinkedIn just asked an interesting question, which is, where do you see the AI in 5 years from now? Where will Alexa fit in? So our goal in all of this is to build a companion AI. That's always been kind of the goal in all of this, and voice was one way to communicate with that. But I think when we think about AI in a broader picture, in the 5 to 10 year realm, I've given a talk on this, but I'll share kind of the highlights. I imagine if you think about the concept of human evolution, right? Over millions of years, we've evolved into what we are today. But I think for the most part, I don't think we're going to see any major advancements in human evolution just naturally. We tend to lean towards the status quo. We try to keep things the way they are anymore. But I think with technology, especially with AI, we're going to be able to see this go broader. And so some simple examples that I like to use are, imagine being at a conference and there's a bunch of people in the hallway. Some of them you met, some of them you haven't, and you don't remember any of them. My biggest fear is that I would be walking through an Amazon building and I would walk past Alicia and not immediately recognize her or be able to remember her name, right? Like that's a painful thing, because she and I have done this show a few times together. I should at least be able to remember her name and interact and do all that. But that's a fear because I've never met you in person. I don't think I have. And so imagine having some sort of AI that could, and again, let's take all the scary stuff away. I'm just talking in big pictures, so I don't want you guys to think of this as like where exactly we're headed. But I want to take the scary stuff away, like facial recognition and voice recognition. Let's just assume that stuff works in a safe, private way. But imagine walking through a hallway and having people's names that you know pop up above their heads so as you look through some kind of lens. Or being able to have the information you need at the moment you need it. So someone asks you a question and you can't remember the answer. You can't remember, I don't know, someone's phone number or something like that. Having that AI automatically go and process and get that information for you immediately, and have that available to you. So when someone says, hey, do you know John's phone number? And instead of like digging through your phone and doing all that stuff, being able to just hear in your ear, oh, John's phone number is whatever. And then you can just tell the person, right? It's memory expansion within context. So those are a couple of the little things. But some of the other stuff that I'm looking forward to, I always use the scheduling a dentist appointment example. This is one of my favorites. Today, you go to your dentist and you have an appointment. And while you're at the dentist, they say, okay, let's set up your next appointment for 6 months from now. And they add something to the calendar. And you and the person scheduling it both know that's a joke. There's no way any of us know what we're doing exactly 6 months from today. So usually you're like, yeah, that seems great. But as like 2 weeks before approaches, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a meeting at that time, or I'm going to be on vacation or whatever. Because most of us don't plan our lives 6 months ahead of time. So then you have to call them and you have to reschedule, or maybe they have some convenient text messaging feature, but you have to spend some time kind of syncing your personal calendar and desires against a dentist office. And so it's my aspiration, I think, when I think about some of the ways that AI can help, is that instead of me going through any of that, instead my AI lets me know through whatever device, whether that's Echo or a phone or whatever, that, hey, by the way, you have a dentist appointment next Tuesday. I cleared your calendar, it's all set, everything's handled. And what it actually did was it looked at my calendar and my preferences, right? Because there's more to it than just what's on your calendar, but your actual preferences. Do you like a morning appointment, afternoon, whatever? And then on top of that, it was able to look at my dentist's calendar and see exactly what's available. And then it was also able to talk with my healthcare provider, which here in the United States, a lot of those things need to be approved. I need to make sure that I am not having an appointment sooner than 6 months. And so it compares and contrasts all of that data and mixes it together and says, oh, cool, we're going to get this appointment for Jeff. And then it just lets me know, hey, by the way, your appointment next Tuesday. That's amazing. I didn't ask it to do that. I didn't ask it to handle any of that. And it just happens. And you can imagine the same thing applying to like your friends, right? Especially as we come out of this pandemic. I want to get together with my friends and hang out, but anyone that's an adult that has tried to get together with other adults, especially once you mix children into the mix, possibly hard. And so what if you just saw on your calendar that like next Friday, Alicia and I and a bunch of our other Amazon employees decided we're getting together at some bar in Seattle. Like it just scheduled it for us. I haven't seen her in months. That's so cool that we're getting together. But we didn't have to like call and go through all that awkward like, are you free? When does this work stuff? It just happens. My assistant talked to her assistant and we figured it all out. So that's kind of where I see us going. I want you to imagine having the most attentive human assistant you've ever imagined. And now convert that to AI. They know everything they need to know about you. They can give you the information you need at the time you need it. They're recording everything that you need to know, to save, to persist, whatever. Man, I think it's going to be awesome. There's obviously some technological hurdles we get through all that, but I'm really excited about where we can go. So that Revital, that's what I'm looking for. Little Defeat had a question that I thought might be good for you, Alicia. Did you see that one?
Not yet.
I have a live skill called My Edition Game. If I submit an update that adds 2 new languages, but one of the languages has an issue in certification, will the language that had no issues just go live, or do I have to pass all of them to get any of them to go live?
Typically, you have to pass all of them for it to go live. So
Okay.
if you submit it with 2 new languages, and one of them has an issue, then you'll get feedback for the whole skill, and you'll have to fix that issue before the skill can go live.
Got it. So if it's really time imperative, you would recommend doing one at a time then?
Yes, if there's one that the certification team finds there's an issue with and you need it published as soon as possible, you can just try to submit it with just the one new language. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. And there's a follow-up question to that from Trey last, which is, why is this true? Once your skill is live, locales can only be removed by suppressing the entire skill. So if I've deployed a skill to 5 locales, and now I want to pull the German one down, I can't do that without pulling the entire skill down. Do you have any feedback or thoughts on that one?
I think there is a workaround for it. Let me see. Yeah, so currently there's no way to suppress a skill for only one locale, but as a workaround, you can go to the distribution tab for your skill and select availability on the left-hand side. And there should be a radio button there for selected countries and regions. And you want to check uncheck the box next to the country that you would like to exclude, and then resubmit your skill for certification. I also suggest in the testing instructions for your skill to just write out that you're trying to remove availability for users of just a specific locale. And then that way it will basically suppress one language for your skill, but in a strange way.
Got it.
But it works.
Now it's only suppressed in that new users couldn't get it, but that exclude users that already had it?
It should. Well, actually, I'm not sure.
I like to ask tough questions, so I apologize.
Yeah. That is a really good question. That I'm not sure of. I would assume that it would remove users' ability to invoke the skill, even if they already had it enabled, just because you're removing distribution for their area. So it should remove the skill entirely.
Okay. Well, that's good to know then. So it is possible. It's just not possible to be done by the developer. They would have to submit through certification and have them remove it.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
After making the changes, yeah.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see if I've got anything else here. Revital, looks like a promising future. You're the one that asked about my 5-year, 10-year view. When do you think Alexa will go into Israel? I do use it here, but it's not supported that much. This is one of those tricky roadmap questions. I don't know, but I can assure you that our intention is for Alexa to be everywhere. So the only answer I can really give you is eventually. Maybe that offers you a little hope, but as far as a specific timeline, I don't have anything for you there. So Benjamin liked my calendar skill idea. The challenge with it, Benjamin, is getting access and permissions to all of the different calendars that you need necessary access to. But if you could get a bunch of people to do that, man, that would be super awesome, and I would be one of your first beta users for sure. I'm a font of ideas, but I rarely have the time to execute on many of them. So you're welcome to run with it, man. Go. Pete Erickson, my good friend Pete. If you guys don't know Pete, he left a comment on LinkedIn. Pete runs the Voice Summit. So it's often referred to as Voice. But let's see if I can. Get you a URL. We'll do a little promotion for Pete because he is such an incredible supporter of this community. This is the website for the conference that he runs, and it's actually coming up in October. So Voice 2021 is I believe it's coming up in DC. I forget because I had heard that maybe they were moving some things around too. But it's a fantastic event. I would call this one of the premier events in the voice world. So definitely check out voicesummit.ai. But thank you for being here, Pete, by the way. I would love to know, since I've got you here, one, how I can get on your list of upcoming speakers, and how I can make my way into your speaker roster, because I would love to speak there. I've spoken there many years in the past and would love to be a part of what you're doing. So let me know. Okay. Stephen Brown says, to the locale question, why can't I change the invocation name after a skill goes live? I have to pull the whole skill down, master rebuild. Stephen, I have an answer for you on this one. I want you to imagine for a moment that on your phone, you find your favorite app, whatever that happens to be. And now, tonight, while you're sleeping, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the icon and the name of that app. And I'm going to put it somewhere else on your phone. Would you be able to find it? Like, could you find an app on your phone whose icon and name had changed? My guess is probably no. And I say that kind of jokingly because you could still scroll through your phone and find all the apps and be like, hey, this one's new. But with voice, you don't have that luxury because there is no visual like scrolling list of apps that you have installed available to you, unless you dig into like some of the Alexa settings and look at your enabled skills. So it's really, really difficult for users who use their voice to interact with your software to even have an idea that the name of the skill has changed. So if you change your invocation name, you're basically saying I created a brand new skill and no one's going to know how to use it anymore. So that's the reason. It is one of the most fundamental, most important ways that people can find your software, and changing the name makes it disappear. So that is the reason why you cannot change your invocation name. That is my little speech on that. Alicia, do you have a perspective on this?
Yeah, I just basically have the same information. It's just for customer experience, basically. For their side of things, it's much less confusing if the invocation name stays the same. Agreed.
So Pete asked the question. I didn't even get into this. I was so just in shock that he was here, and welcome, Pete. He wanted to know about the fact that we use the term ambient computing a few times lately, including the title of this session. Is ambient computing being called out in a purposeful way as a new practice area? Not specifically. I think that, Pete, if we look at how we've talked about Alexa since the beginning, it's always been a big focus on the original example was the Star Trek computer, right? On the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. And as you think about how that works, it's ever present. You can walk to engineering, you can talk to it. You can go to the bridge, you can talk to it. You can be walking around the ship, you can talk to the food synthesizer or whatever. And all of that is the same entity. That same ambient computing is available to you everywhere, through touch screens and through voice and through a number of other interfaces. They're comm links, all of that stuff. That's ambient computing. The idea behind ambient is that it is computing that you don't have to specifically go and interact with. It's just there and present and ready when you are. So I think ambient computing has always been a part of the story. I think that we're leaning harder into the word because I think it's an important distinction. I think that a lot of people really just think voice only, like this is just a voice interface. We're talking about speakers and microphones. And that is a really, really important part of ambient because that's how most of us communicate with ambient computing today. We're not talking about having to pick up a device and like specifically interact with it. It is the world around us, and voice is a fantastic interface for ambient, but it's not the only one. So I think that's why you're seeing us use it more, but I wouldn't say that it's a pivot or a new practice area or anything like that. It's always been what we do. I think we're just being more deliberate about saying it. And we have 5 minutes left. My goodness. I'm going to stand back up. I'm feeling it. This like weird stool chair thing. And it's super comfortable, but I want it to just be a little higher. This is a standing desk, so I feel like I'm like an elementary school kid sitting.
Yeah.
No problem, Pete. Happy to answer. Steve Nelson mentioned that for those of you that are in India looking for resources, there is someone, his name is Karthik Raghabathi, who's based there. I think he's based in the Bangalore area. He's a fantastic resource. He is not, he used to be in a role very similar to mine, but for India. But he has shifted a little bit. He's focusing more on partners and some interaction there. So he still exists and he's still very knowledgeable. So if you can get a hold of Karthik, can't recommend that enough. He is streaming most days on Twitch. So he's doing lots of very cool stuff with Alexa, but is not specifically an evangelist these days. Although I wish he was. He's amazing. All right, so we have 3 minutes left. Pete, if you're still watching, let's get some time on our calendars. I would love to have an AI schedule this for us, but I would love to have a chance to catch up with you. It's been a little while, so 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, would be great. I'm out of town next week, but I would love to connect with you either later this week or early the following. Okay, couple of things right before we leave. Alexa Live is coming up. You guys are always asking for the newest, latest, coolest stuff. July 21st, the day before my birthday, we are doing Alexa Live. And I think I even have a link set up for that. Alexa.design. Did I do that right? I did. You can go to alexa.design/live. I'll give you the full URL here, but if you want to just type it quickly, you can. Alexa Live, we have a ton of announcements coming. Lots and lots of new features and tech and developer tools and all sorts of stuff. But in that will all be available on the 21st. That's when you'll be able to watch the live stream, the keynote, all of the sessions that are coming afterward. You can find all of that there. Make sure you register on the website to get access to all of that. So that's the first piece. Alexa Live is going to be super cool. You guys want new shiny stuff, that's the place to get it. The other piece is the Slack. If you guys aren't in the Slack, I thought I had, yeah, you can go here, alexa.design/Slack. You can see a consistency. It's alexa.design/whatever. But you can go there to join our developer community. So there's, I think we're at almost 1,100 people now that are in there, Alicia. It's crazy, but
yeah.
it's really growing. And it seems to be an incredibly supportive, helpful community of people. I mean, I can see on my other screen over here, there's been questions happening this whole time as people have been, as we've been doing this office hours even, and they have 3 requests or 3 responses, 5 responses. Like people are getting their questions answered. And even the beginner stuff that you're afraid to ask it. People are happy to help and share their knowledge. It's a really good community. So alexa.design/Slack will get you in there. Can't recommend that enough. What else we got? And I think that might be it. Revital asked about, what do you think the biggest problem with the AI? Do you think AGI? I don't know what AGI is. Artificial Global, what does the G stand for? I'm going to do a quick search. AGI. Artificial General Intelligence, like GPT-3, I think is a really interesting thing. I'm waiting for my access. If you guys aren't familiar with GPT-3, it's kind of it's AI that was trained by the internet. which could be good or bad. But it's a knowledge-based system that you can ask it questions. You can generate content. I've seen companies like ESPN, and I see this a lot in sports, where after every game of baseball, there's a summary of the game, right? And it's like, hey, this person did really well, this person did bad. Here are the highlights of the game. And they're actually using technology like this. I don't know if they're actually using GPT-3, but they're using something like it to generate the entire article, because they can just feed it the statistics that came out of the game, and it can write an article and say this person had a triple and 2 doubles, and like it's quite remarkable. And anymore, I see those articles tagged at the bottom. This article was generated with AI. But it's really interesting to think about the fact that a lot of the content that we're reading anymore might not have been written by a human. I think that's quite cool. All right, so I think that's it for today. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Yeah, we're a little bit over time already, but this is always awesome. I had Steph Sharp on here last week while I was out of town at some meetings, and she's actually coming back. She's going to be here, our host, again next Tuesday. So get your questions ready for her. Otherwise, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Don't forget, Alexa Live is coming up really fast. So make sure to get your spot, and we'll see you there. All right. Thank you so much, Alicia, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.